Hello and welcome to another edition of the Lynn Lowdown. And today we are joined by Attorney Nicole Bluefort. How are you doing, ma'am?
I'm doing wonderful. Crazy busy, but I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for asking.
It's it's hectic times for a lot of people, especially attorneys, with so much going on in the nation, so much to deal with. Then we got Thanksgiving coming up too. But today we're just gonna talk about all this rent stuff. People scared, people don't know, are confused with certain information. So you're here to give the public the information that they need moving forward. So first, it ended last month, right? A couple weeks, like.
It did. It actually expired on October 17th. Charlie Baker had the option of being able to extend the moratorium, but he decided not to. But I'm certainly going to go over the resources that are available for tenants and landlords today.
Yeah, definitely. So the moratorium expired October 17th. I'm sure people have been confused, a little nervous, because some people think they have to leave their apartments. They have to, or somebody's going to come physically take them out. A lot of people are just confused. So please explain to them, now that it's expired, the next step and, their rights as residents and as tenants. Like they can't be physically taken out.
Yes. All right. So I'm really going to really spend the time today, as long as Mikala will allow me to, of course, because I think that there's a lot of sort of misinformation out there, number one. And then I think secondly, partly it's also people just don't know what's available. So I just want to make sure that people are equipped with the knowledge that they need, so that way they can successfully navigate the court system and their financial issues. Okay. So as you mentioned, Mikala, the state moratorium that was issued by Governor Baker had expired on October 17th. However, in anticipation of that initiative, or moratorium rather, expiring, he came out with what's called the COVID-19 Eviction Diversion Initiative. So that's the COVID-19 Eviction Diversion Initiative. So what exactly does that mean? So basically, the Baker administration had announced, I would consider a real comprehensive set of resources to support not only the tenants, but the landlords. I know the landlords for sure have been feeling like they've been left out and everything has been for the tenants. So Baker has been hearing everybody's prayers and, sentiments around that. So this is really a set of resources for both the tenants and the landlords during these financial challenges that is caused by the pandemic. And basically, the goal of this initiative is to keep tenants safely in their homes and to support ongoing expenses as well for the landlords once the pause for evictions and foreclosures expired on that Saturday, October 17th. So in developing these programs and resources, he really kind of put together this cross-agency team. And so he basically worked with a variety of stakeholders. So not just your, government officials, but he also spoke with people like, as I like to think of, like on the ground, like that's actually in the trial court system as well, to say, okay, how can we streamline this? What kind of resources can we get people, landlords and tenants alike, to be able to navigate through this system? Because, and I think I read in the news, over 100,000 people are going to be displaced, whether they're homeowners or whether they're tenants, and that's a lot, right? Yeah. So some of the funding highlights of the moratorium is that this is a $171 million total commitment for the fiscal year of 2021. Okay. And so 112 million of that new funding is to support expanded housing stability programs during the remainder of that fiscal year. So further than that, Mikala, they're saying 100 million is going to be specifically for emergency rental assistance through the RAF program and the IRMA program. I'll go over the acronyms for that because I definitely want to make sure people leave here.
Sorry to interrupt. You said 170 million? Is that?
So it's 171 million was the total commitment. Okay. With the Baker administration for the fiscal year of the 2021. So this year upcoming to 2021. And kind of the breakdown of that is that 100 million of that was supposed to be going into the RAF program and the IRMA program. And again, I'll break all those terms down for people. And then up to about 12.3 million was supposed to also go to providing tenants and landlords with access to representation, because there might be some people that may not be eligible for some of this government assistance. So they're going to find themselves being challenged by the court system. And the stats say that landlords typically come to court prepared or represented by a lawyer. And then although you can represent yourself, unfortunately, if you're up against a lawyer, you're on equal ground, as lawyers are trained to know defenses and all that sort of stuff. So I'll go into tips around that, but they basically reserved about up to 12.3 million just to be able to help people have pro bono services and stuff like that. And about 50 million, I want to say roughly, was for post-eviction rapid rehousing. Yeah. So do you want me to talk a little bit about the RAF program?
Yeah, the RAF, which is the Residential Assistance and for Families in Transition, that is the program she's referring to for those tuning in. Yeah, just get a little bit into that, just so people can know more about that.
Right. So what I'm telling people, right, is if you know, well, as I'm going on, I want to give people tips too, so that way they know how to apply in their situation, right? Yep. So number one, communication is key. If you are a tenant, don't wait for your landlord to serve you with a notice to quit. Obviously, if you've been served with a notice to quit, communicate with them at that point. But if you haven't been served with a notice to quit yet, you know it's coming. Reach out to your landlord, talk to them about your financial situation, because there may be a way you can avoid that landlord filing a notice to quit against you if you're able to work out something financially. In the interim, no matter where you find yourself, whether you work out something financially with your landlord or you find yourself in the court system, you need to apply right away for the RAF program and the IRMA program. So as McCullough had mentioned, the RAF program stands for Residential Assistance for Families and Transition Program. The IRMA program is the Emergency Rental and Mortgage Assistance Program. I'm going to briefly describe both. Yep. My recommendation to you, though, is if you apply for the RAF program and you don't get it, please apply for the IRMA program, because the income eligibility requirements are different. Don't necessarily think that you don't fit in the category. It's not up to you. Let them tell you you don't fit within the requirements.
And it doesn't hurt to apply.
Right. You need to do whatever you can do, because I've had people come and talk to me and say, oh, I'm looking at it and I just don't think I'm going to be qualified. Put in the application, because you just never know. Even if you're above the income requirements, I still tell people, just try. It doesn't hurt to try, okay? Because you need to get yourself out of this arrearage that you owe. So for the RAF program, it helps keep households in stable housing conditions when they're facing evictions, foreclosures, loss of utilities, and other housing emergencies that's caused by a loss of income. So maybe you got laid off during this coronavirus or something, or your employment was terminated. Basically, you've got a loss of income, or perhaps you have an increase of expenses, or both, right? So what's really key about this RAF program too, Michaela, is that pre-COVID-19, so before this whole pandemic took place, what they were offering was up to $4,000, but because of this crisis, they have increased how much you can actually get. So you can get up to possibly $10,000, and that's $10,000 per household to help preserve your current housing situation or to help you transition to new housing.
Yeah. For people that are collecting unemployment, does this affect them in any way, or will that kind of derail their ability to apply? Because sometimes when you have unemployment, you get secluded from certain things, and you're not allowed to apply for certain things. So for those that have been receiving unemployment, does this have an effect on them?
I can't say whether or not, McCullough, it's going to have an effect, because they have this income eligibility requirement. So obviously I don't work for the program or anything. I'm just telling you what I know from the basics information. But my thought is obviously when you're filling out the financial affidavit or the forms, whatever they require of you to determine your eligibility, you have to obviously include your unemployment as a source of income, because it is a source of income. And so if you fit within that chart or that guideline, that they have their limits, so long as you fit within the limit, you should be able to, receive assistance from the program.
Yeah, and around here, a lot of the residents would, they use a lot of nonprofits for information to get help, and some of the complaints, there was some confusion as far as the federal guidelines and the state guidelines. There was some confusion amongst residents here. So can you just explain to them some of the differences between the federal guidelines and the state guidelines?
Sure. So what just expired that I was initially talking about with the Baker administration, that was the state moratorium. That was the state moratorium where it actually honestly made it very easy for people, to be perfectly honest. If you chose not to pay rent, which I made sure I recommended to people to pay rent if you could, even if it was a little bit, right? But if you just didn't pay rent, that moratorium, that state moratorium under Baker basically said that you didn't have to pay, and you didn't have to prove it, you didn't have to provide anything. But the CDC moratorium that's in place through the Center of Disease Control, all right? That's the Center of Disease Control, the CDC moratorium, that is federal. That moratorium is good through December 31st. December 31st, that is good through. However, this is different than the state. So I'm glad, Mukala, you asked me this question. Here's the key. This CDC moratorium requires effort. You have to actually do some things. So there's this form that you have to fill out and basically sign. It's called a declaration under the penalties of perjuries, where you have to basically state whether or not you have done certain things. So just a quick summary of the things that you are going to have to expect to state in this form is that you have used all best efforts to obtain all available government assistance. So that's one of the statements. So in order to sign this, you have to say that that's true. That you either expect to earn no more than $99,000 in annual income, that you are unable to pay full rent or make full housing payment due to a substantial loss of income, and that you are trying to use your best efforts to make a timely payment. So that's just a summary, not all of the statements, but basically there's the statements in this declaration. You read it. You say, does this apply to me? Does this apply to me? Am I doing this? Am I doing this? And if so, you are to sign it, date it, and give it to your landlord. Okay, that's so different from what the Baker, that moratorium with Baker did. You didn't have to do anything. This, you have to do something. In order to receive this form, you can go to www.mass.gov/COVID housing help to get the declaration form. So you sign, you date, you give it to your landlord. But what then? Does that mean he can't pursue me? Does that mean he can't file? Does it mean I don't owe any money? No, you still owe the money. The rent is continuously accumulated. He can still serve you with the notice to quit. He can still even, your landlord can still even serve you with the summary process and go so far as to get a judgment of eviction against you. So what does this moratorium do? It basically holds the execution that would require you to get physically removed from the property. So it's basically will halt the execution part, the physical removal. So I do think, Makala, it's still worth people pursuing that, filling out the declaration, signing it, and giving it to your landlord, because at least it will hold you good through December 31st if an execution is issued by the court.
Yeah, because at this point, we just have to encourage everyone, just take all precautions, just fill out anything and everything that you can in order to help benefit yourself. And you can't be scared to do it too, because, you know, a lot of residents, especially in an area like Lynn, their understanding of the Lynn, we got so many immigrants here, and they use the children for translations, and the understanding of certain things isn't, you know, it's not all that there. And the children's understanding, you know, they're just kids, so they're not, if they read something, there's certain words in there that they don't understand. So you can see why they'd get confused and a little nervous about the situation.
Yeah, confusion. There's barriers to these resources because of that. But if you are in the Lynn area, you can certainly also, I know I gave you the website online, but you can also contact your Lynn Housing Authority. They should be able to assist you with information regarding how you can apply for the RAF program, and then also the emergency rental and mortgage assistance program. That IRMA program is very much like the RAF. However, that income eligibility is a little bit different, and how much they can provide you with is different as well. But it can also help with mortgage arrears and upcoming rent and things of that nature. So those are two really good programs, Mikala, I recommend. I would also say, what's another one that I recommend? I think those two actually are probably the best place for people to start if they're in need of assistance.
And as far as from an attorney's perspective on all this, just how much, you know, you get so many things coming at you on a daily basis, and then you have this, because, you know, we started off in March when COVID hit and everybody's uncertain, so I'm sure you got a whole bunch of stuff coming to you, and then with this you have to deal with this. So as for an attorney, just how much is it for you just to get yourself mentally stable to deal with this stuff, because it's a lot to deal with.
It's a lot, and sometimes people don't realize the lawyers are human too. I know people pay us for services, particularly if we're private counsel like myself. Obviously, I am paid for my services, but you know, we're human, and we feel for people that are really in, you know, and this is just a difficult financial, challenging time for people. Mm-hmm. And you know, I'm here to definitely give people hope and the information that they need. I know that I was out here with Mikala back in, I think, March when this all went down, and I'm thankful that he asked me to come back on to give the information. So I think as a lawyer, we just have to really understand that, and be human, and just understand what people are really going through. And people really appreciate that as well. And when there's an understanding of what people are going through on just a human level, it makes us work that much harder to be able to protect tenants and landlords. I just want to make sure this is not all about tenants. It's definitely help for, you know, landlords to these services. And you know what, while it came to mind, Mikala, I want to mention this program too. Mm-hmm. It's called the TPP. The TPP. That's another program where you could possibly get some financial assistance. That stands for the Tenancy Preservation Program. Mm-hmm. And it basically assists households where there could be a family member that has a disability. Okay. And has and basically this program really has a tremendous success rate for really helping people that have individuals in their home that are very vulnerable in working things out with their landlord and things of that nature. So you definitely want to take advantage if you believe you have a disability. And again, I'm all about, even if you don't think you have a disability, hey, you know, if you've got a physical disability, a mental disability, hey, try. You may have a disability, okay?
It doesn't hurt to try.
It doesn't hurt to try.
Now, as we move forward, 2020 is coming to an end. Now, 2021 is going to be another hurdle to go through in 2021. So just as we move forward, how should residents prepare themselves for, you know, the next phase of this?
Are we talking about in terms of this whole tenancy thing?
Yes.
Well, the courts are looking very different. So if you find yourself in court, I want to let you know these little tidbits so that way people can prepare themselves. Number one, as Mikala had mentioned, right, when you're getting your notice to quit, you need to take a deep breath, okay? Because it causes a lot of people I can imagine the stress it would cause you. I know it would cause me stress if I ever received a notice to quit. Just know that you do not need to leave. However, it's the initiation by the landlord to the process, okay? So I mentioned to you all the various programs, the TPP, the IRMA program, and the RAP program. That's a step that you can take in addition to communicating with your landlord. But as far as the court's looking like, I want to make sure that you are prepared for that experience, okay? So after you receive your notice to quit, within the prescribed timeline, your landlord will provide you with what they call a summary process eviction complaint. They have to properly serve you. Once you are served, you need to answer. I'm going to repeat it again. You need to answer. Stats are showing that majority of tenants are not answering the complaint. And it's so important for the court to know what your position is. You might also have some defenses that could help you with not getting evicted. So for example, if you are being evicted for under a 14-day notice to quit for non-payment of rent, you may have some defenses. And what are those defenses? Perhaps it's bad conditions. Perhaps they're, prior to, and it has to be prior to pre-COVID. So I want to be clear about that, right? It has to be prior to you stopping to pay rent or paying less rent. It's that whole idea of because the landlord did this in terms of bad conditions and I put him on notice and he did not correct those things, I in turn said, okay, well, I'm withholding rent as a result of that, okay? So it could be bad conditions. Or you could have defenses where the landlord didn't even serve you properly, because sometimes landlords are not serving properly. Because with the 14-day notice to quit, you do have a prescribed timeline that you could come up with the money and pay, and they can no longer pursue you for an eviction. So that's important for you to know. It's also important to know that they have to serve you with the notice to quit first before going to court. Some landlords don't do that. They go straight to court and don't do the notice to quit. So that's why it's so important that you do an answer and then also explore whether you could have your own counterclaims for things or you may have your own defenses, because that can help you substantially. Mm-hmm. Also, at the beginning of this, I know that I was very numbers heavy, but because I just wanted to explain how much money it has been going out there. I know that there needs to be more money. 171 million is definitely a lot of money to me. Yes. However, when you're talking about potentially over 100,000 displaced families, tenants, and landlords, it's really not if they're owing, all 3,000 a month or two. It just doesn't seem like enough, right? It's not quite enough to cover all of those arrears, but it's a start, right? So basically, what I'm saying is, some of that money that was channeled from the Baker administration has gone to legal support. So there are various legal aids out there. I think one of them is Neighborhood Legal Services. I think that's one very local to Lynn. I know that housing courts, even prior to COVID, and I know that even more so, they have legal support there, where basically they'll have attorneys that are available to help you, if not representing you, filling out the paperwork for you, okay, helping you do the answer and things like that. So getting an attorney can definitely put you at a better advantage than you trying to go at it on your own.
Yeah, definitely. Oh man, we run out of time. So much information. But one more time, can you just let the residents know about those important programs that they can go to help them?
Sure. So the three programs that I covered was the RAPT program, which is the Residential Assistance for Families and Transition program that can give you possibly up to $10,000. I also talked about the IRMA program, which is the Emergency Rental and Mortgage Assistance program. And then I also talked about the TPP program, which is the Tenant Preservation Program, in which you or somebody in your household has a disability. They may also be able to provide you some support there. Again, 211, calling 211 is a great way to get information about the state resources that I had talked about. Also going to www.freedomsf.org 3 W's, mass.gov/COVID housing help, or you can certainly contact your Lynn Housing Authority. I apologize, I don't have the number memorized, but you can definitely contact your Lynn Housing Authority for information as well.
All right, awesome. Once again, Nicole, thank you for coming on, giving the people all that great information that's gonna be beneficial for them. We really appreciate this.
Yes, no problem. Thank you for having me on. And obviously you can reach out to us as well. The law offices of Nicole M. Bluefort with office locations in Boston and Lynn. Our number is 781-593-1952. Again, our number is 781-593-1952, or you can visit our website at bluefortlaw.com. Thank you, Skyla.
Tell them the Facebook page too.
Oh, or you can visit our Facebook page. That's right. At the law, it's the law offices of Nicole M. as in Marie Bluefort Facebook page. I'm going to be doing something like this, I think on December 10th, where I'm going to be going into it for about probably like an hour and a half in a lot of detail on this. Again, if you have any questions, so you can certainly reach us on Facebook.
All right, and there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's another edition of the Lynn Lowdown. That's Attorney Nicole M. Bluefort. I'm Bukal Kabongo. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye, guys.